I'm not being a prima donna. I really feel out of it.
I don't know. I still don't feel like we've had much worse summers, though.
You mean as far as days over 100?
Generally speaking, yes. And then also days over 120.
But that's record breaking. And that doesn't happen every year.
No.
I just don't. I don't have the stomach for it anymore. I don't have the stomach for over 100 degrees. I was in Portland for a week, and it was perfect. It was like 78.
Yeah, I'm heading to... Deanna and I are going to San Diego next weekend.
That's
Friday.
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Even if it's rainy, it's going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's...
Although in San Diego, it gets rainy and chilly.
Yeah.
It gets chilly at the beach.
I'm not concerned about it.
No. Chris and I are going to San Francisco this weekend.
San Francisco is nice. I was in San Francisco earlier this year, and I was in Portland earlier this year, too.
True.
Both of those. It was rainy and cold in Portland when I was there.
Really? It was mostly sunny for us. We had a few days that were overcast.
I like throwing a jacket on, though, so it doesn't... I was talking to the... Michael Kurtzman from Burgundy Jerk yesterday.
Okay.
I started doing some limited engagement interviews again. So,
okay.
But he was in here yesterday, and I was asking him about that because he's from Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And he said, and everybody that I've ever talked to who's from snow and anything like that says they would much rather deal with this every year than be back in the snow. I mean, he was... From his band standpoint, anyway, he's talking about how, one of the potentially most important gigs of their career opening for this band for Catch-22, the gig got snowed out and only a handful of people were able to make it to the venue. I can't imagine anything like that happening here. So,
yeah,
I guess I have gone back and forth between how much I can stand the heat, and for some reason I'm not minding it so much this year. And I've heard enough horror stories of people who've been trapped and unable to get out because of snowstorms on the eastern seaboard, and all the earthquakes that were happening in California recently.
That doesn't scare me. I've experienced 3, and they weren't that.
I grew up in earthquakes. We had one of the big ones while I was a kid there. So I don't know. I don't mind not having... I kind of got used to it, but I also don't mind not having it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to be so crass. Clearly, when people get injured, that's terrible. But last night I was up, or was it 2 nights ago, and the news had this special, an extended news program that was about the oncoming monsoons and the extreme heat. And they said that last summer, 181 people died here from directly heat-related, either a heat stroke or a dehydration or something else. That's awful. You don't hear about 181 people dying when it's real snowy in Minneapolis.
On that cheery note, should we introduce the show real quick? This is Hoot and Review.
I'm Jenna.
I'm Jared.
What really matters is what you like, not what you are like. Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.
Then I was thinking on the walk up to your place here, it's funny, do we have classic how to deal with the heat, Phoenix things, or do we just complain about it? Okay, name one. What's a thing that you don't do everywhere, but you do it here because you just have to beat the heat?
Not go outside?
Yeah, okay. But let's say you're a person without the means for central AC.
Sure.
Swamp cooler, and that sucks. Those are miserable. Sit in front of your fan with a wet towel over it.
I don't know. I went on my lunch break. Well, I don't really take a lunch at work, but I do like to go for a walk because I'm stuck at a desk all day. And it was already 100 degrees at 10:30, and I don't know. I just had a bottle of water with me. It didn't bother me that much. I'll walk a mile and a half or so, and it's I it's maybe it's just this whole like new outlook thing, but it's just
you're embracing everything with positivity. You make me sick.
I don't think that I'm embracing everything with positivity. I'm embracing it with it could always be worse.
Okay, well, that's cool. In my mind, I'm visualizing that sequence from Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee, where visually it's just telling you it's fucking hot. Like, everyone's got their
the
shirts
fire
off.
hydrant.
They pop up in the fire hydrant. I love that scene.
Yeah.
We don't really do that out here.
Well, no.
And then
not so much.
Ice Cube, Rosie Perez nipples.
Yeah. I
That's
remember
the best
that.
Part.
But I mean, if we did that around here, we'd be out of water.
Oh, yeah. I guess you're right. Yeah. Is this true? I just heard somewhere, but it sounds like an internet rumor, that we are so out of water, like from building suburbs and whatnot, that our aquifers depleted and we're importing all of it now. That can't be true, right?
I hadn't heard
Colorado
that.
River.
I hadn't heard that. Everything. I mean, my news sources K-Jazz when I listen, and all the water stories that I would hear there say that we're good for at least 5 years or something.
We should be thinking about it. Okay, I remembered the source. I just finished reading, and now that I'm thinking about the source is outdated. It came out 10 years ago. I read the book No Impact Man because I'm trying to think of ways to be more sustainable, and also lately I've been wanting to get a small business idea. But anyway, that was sort of a connection, like research. And it was hard to get into this book because the guy just seems so preachy and self-righteous. Like I tried to watch the documentary that they made about him, and I couldn't get through it. I'm like,
This is how I feel about vegans and Sam Harris.
Okay, dude, totally Sam Harris. Totally. He lost me. You can't be that preachy. It's just like, then veil goes over.
I feel also similarly about atheists. It's anything that's just completely black and white and proselytizing is how is one way any better than the other then?
Exactly.
Life is
I'm
gray areas.
Right, because I've gathered so much intelligence and information, but on some of these issues,
you have to live too. I mean, how are you supposed to enjoy things?
Right. That's a good point. So I like the ethos behind this project. The guy that wrote No Impact Man, his name is Colin Bevan. He was a reporter, and he's a liberal, and he started feeling guilty about things like climate change, and he wanted to look into what he could do, like what personal steps he could take individually. The challenge for him and his family is they're living in New York City at the time in an apartment. It's him and his wife and their 2-year-old daughter, so she's still in diapers. Yeah. So that's one of the big family issues they have to get over.
Did they move to cloth?
They did, and it was scary for him at first, but he did it. And then, but he goes all the way to, we're not going to ride in cars anymore. Anywhere we need to go in the city, we're just going to walk or go by bike. We're not going to take the elevator. And they live on like the 11th floor, so that's crazy. And then she works on the 24th floor, so he gives his wife a pass when she goes to work. That's kind of funny. They're not going to fly in planes. Although they kind of break that rule because of the jet fuel.
Sure.
Because somewhere it says that one cross-country flight is equal to the same amount of, like, bad carbon monoxide and dioxide, whatever, as one average American would produce riding in cars and commuting for the whole year. One trip across the country. And I need to cross-check that. Sure. Because it makes me feel bad because I travel so much.
Well, but I'm not going to stop traveling. Again, life is too short. I think that that I like the idea of trying to be carbon neutral and supporting companies that do carbon offsetting.
That's really good to know about.
But I mean, you got to do your research on that sort of thing, and
you have to do so much research.
Again, I just think, first of all, if I did live in a city where I could walk to everything, I would be happy as fuck just to give up my car. Yeah, I would have no qualms about that.
It's nice to not
only have it like in a case where I was going to go across country, or do only use it for things that I could not possibly walk to.
You had to go to IKEA.
Sure.
But even you can get around that now with like Uber and the other ride shares.
Sure. Yeah. But they're not. They're. I guess if I want to talk about that, the kind of car that I have, I couldn't fit like half of the boxes for things I needed to buy for this new place and this new point in my life where I had nothing.
Right.
And they weren't going to fit in there, so I had to get the delivery.
I thought you were going to say you rented a truck.
I did not rent a truck.
That's pretty butch.
I could have done. I mean, I rented the moving truck. I could have gotten a U-Haul. That would not have been that big a deal. But
you paid for delivery. Okay, so
delivery,
this family goes so far that by the end of the year, they're not even using electricity. Like, they're not on the grid. They buy a little solar panel kit for their apartment, but it only generates enough that they can have a couple lights on.
Here, we should all be on solar.
Well, I agree.
Yeah, it's again insane that we're not completely generating everything off of solar.
I sense that that'll shift soon. Or
Maybe.
we'll be getting more. We're going to have to. The population is really growing fast.
I have a coworker who's on solar, and it was like Solar City or something. So I think it was Solar City, and that got sold to Tesla. So now it's Tesla, and the deal with APS is that you're, I guess, only allowed to have a certain percentage
That's actually being generated by solar?
Yeah.
What?
And then if you don't use all of that and it gets shunted back into
The grid,
then you're supposed to get a credit for that, and all that sort of thing is great. But you're never completely off.
The company makes it so you have to still. Okay, well, let's say you go off the grid and you pop some solar panels on your house, and you have the voltaic batteries where they store the energy. Then you're good.
What's the technology for that, though? Is that great?
But you could go real deep and say, is building solar panels green? Because you have to. Is it, though? Because you have to go mine, silica and a lot of other...
Everybody who's patting themselves on the back for having a Prius was, it's a brown car. It's not...
it's not 100% green. So that's a big fault of this book that I just read, No Impact Man. Because he's saying no impact man, but then a lot of the things that he does...
it's not a comma in there, like, no impact man?
I wish. That would be more literal. There's a lot of things that like even with the poopy cloth diapers, well, you still have to wash them with water, and that's going to go into the waste supply, and there's all kinds of things we have to do to treat.
That baby is polluting the environment.
Yeah,
that baby is not carbon neutral,
right? Anybody that wants to have kids. So there's a lot of things that you just have to do to exist, where you are still leaving an impact in some. You're still using resources. You can't stop drinking water. No,
I think that if you're conscious about it, I'm not nearly there. I can't even begin to claim to be, as the air conditioner continues to run.
Yeah, at a cool 78. It's comfortable in here.
It's great. I think you do what you can. It's not you have to. It's like, again, I'll go back to vegans and Sam Harris and atheists and all the way up to right-wing conservatives and the Christian right and all that kind of thing. Anything along those spectrums, and I'm not a centrist. Socially, I'm super liberal, but there's also some practical things that you have to think about.
Yeah.
True. It's like you can't, unless you're going to say that everything living-wise is paid for, you can't overtax everybody. But you also can't pay for anything if you don't tax people.
Right. There's got to be a balance.
They're all... This is definitely not a political podcast, and I'm not the person I'm not the sort of... I'm not an authority at all to be able to speak to any of that. But ideologically, we could so easily avoid so many socioeconomical issues if we socialized medicine, if we contributed more to housing and all that kind of thing, and there is a lot that we could do. I don't think anybody has an idea that everybody's going to sign off with yet, or but it's all going to come to a head eventually. The disparity